This is all about aligning in Illustrator. So if you don't have the Align panel open, go to Window, Align, or just look for this little icon. So there's 3 align modes you can be in. There's Align to Selection, Align to Key Object, and Align to Artboard. So first I'll show what Align to Selection means. So really what it means is if you select these 2 objects, so I'm going to align each of these symbols into their respective corner. So I have these 2 left objects selected and I have the square selected. So it draws the bounding box around the square. So Align to Selection is going to, if I hit Align Left, it's just going to align to the leftmost point of that selection, to the left edge of the bounding box. So what it's doing is it's aligning path to path right now. If you are using strokes with different widths and you don't want this kind of overlap, if you want to align to the visual edge, what you can do is on the Align panel, hit this hamburger menu and say Use Preview Bounds. Now any alignment done will use the visual edge rather than the actual path itself. So for this, I don't really care about that, so I'm going to uncheck that, but just good to know. So I'm going to select those again, hit Align Left. I'll select these top objects and hit Align Top, Align Right, and Align Bottom. So this align method also works with points on a path. So if I want to turn this into a right object or a right angle, I can select the point that I want to move and select the point that is in the right position I want, the X position. I can just hit Align Right and it moves that path. I can do that to align to this top one, and now I have my right angle. Okay, so next is key objects. So right now I have Level Labs as one group and I have my mark as another group. So if I want to change to a centered, maybe the icon centered over the type layout, then I can, so I'll just scale this down first. What I can do, so I have the logo where I want it. Let's just say that's exactly where I want it. I don't want to hit center and move both objects. I can take the black arrow, don't hold Shift or Command or anything, just click on that object again. So you want to have both your objects selected and just click, and it should show your selection paths get a lot thicker. That means this is your current key object, and if you hit Align or Distribute or anything, it'll move your other objects around that key object. This won't move. So if I hit center, it moves this Level Labs group to be centered underneath the square mark. So you'll notice though that Level and Labs are still left aligned. That's because they're in a group together. So if I ungroup that, now I have Labs and excuse me, I have Labs in its own group. If I do that again, select all 3 groups now, make this my key object and hit center. Now the type will be centered over itself. So it's based on groups. So I'm going to hide my unhide my artboard and switch to Align to Artboard. And this basically works the same as Align to Selection, but imagine that the bounding box is always whatever this size of the artboard is. So I'm going to select all 3 of these objects, group them, and just hit center horizontally and vertically. All right, I'm going to hide that artboard again. So that was the Align tools. So to move on to the Distribute tools, I have these numbers here, and I know that these are equally spaced. I want to add icons over each one, let's say. So I'm just going to quickly create 5 icons. Instead of creating key objects for each one and going one by one to center, which is time consuming, especially I would imagine if you have 50 different objects that you need to align to. What I will do is I will align the first one and the last one, and then select all of my icons and just hit with Align to Selection. I'll just hit Distribute horizontally. And now they're all perfectly spaced because I know that these were perfectly spaced and I aligned to the 1 and the 5. Didn't have to worry about every single individual item. So this works with points on a path also. If you want all of these points to be distributed along the path evenly, I can just hit distribute vertically. Now the spacing here is equal. If I want all of the points of this path to be distributed equally, then what I'd have to do, well, so let's say say you're making a line graph. And so you need these to line up perfectly to, the 5 days that you're showing this trend. If I select all my points, now it's just treated as an object. So what I would do is just with the pen tool, just create an extra dummy point, select all the points except that one you just created, and now you can just say distribute horizontally, and now they're perfectly spaced. And now you can just delete this point. So that's just, we distributed these icons using the center point of the object, but that's because we knew the icons were the same size. If you have objects that are different sizes or drastically different widths, that might not work. So if you go distribute center, now you have this really small gap, you have this large gap. So what you might want to do is you might want to distribute with the left edge. So sometimes that will get you what you want. I would say the times that I have used that is, say you have 5 lines of content, and again, say you're just trying to line some icons up to each one, but this time the icons aren't the same size. So let's just say you've got a few short ones. Make this one really tall. Number 4 will be tall. So these are all different sizes. So what happens if you distribute, so you'll notice, so we have 1 and 5 are aligned to the baseline of the numbers. If you distribute by the center, then 2 is way off, 3 is way off, 4 is too low. But if you go by the bottom edge, distribute by the bottom edge, then it takes the bottom edge of each object and it spaces those bottom edges perfectly apart. So now you have these weird gaps, but depending on what you're doing, sometimes you may only need the bottom edge or the left edge or right edge or whatever it is to be aligned. So that's a way that you can get that spacing how you need it with kind of oddly shaped objects. If what you're trying to accomplish is you want them to be equally spaced, like that, just eyeballing it. So that can be really time consuming to, again, especially if you have 30 different objects, if you want to space them out equally, you have to do a lot of math or just a lot of fidgeting. So what you can do, I'll just move those back. So what you can do is make your first object a key object. And so say I want 30 points of space between them. Now I can just hit this distribute spacing horizontally, and it'll put 30 points in between each object. I can just increase that to 50 and hit the button again until it's the spacing that I like. And so that actually works also with points. So if I select these 4 points and then I select this this anchor point last, this is now my key anchor point. If I want these to be 10 points apart, then I just set this to 10 and say distribute horizontally. Now they're 10 points apart. If I want 20, there we go, there's 20 between each point. So that's it. That's the Align tool. I really appreciate all the comments you guys have been leaving. And if you learned anything from this video, share it with a friend. And thank you for watching.